Take a look at the book. Chapter 5. I'll be the first. After lunch, we had recess, which means we get to go out and the playground and run around. Miss Daisy said we needed to burn off energy. 딱 내가 하고 싶은 말. Now this is more my style. I announced when we got outside. I made a beeline for the monkey bars. Then me and some other kids hit the swings. After hit the swings. After that, all the boys had a contest to see who could spin around in circles the longest without throwing up. Throw up. 뭔지 압니까?
네.
뭐예요? 어떻게 알지? Throw up. Michael Robinson won. Then we all sat down on the grass. Even though Miss Daisy was pretty cool, we all agreed that we hated school. We made a promise to one another that we would hate school forever. Even if we changed our minds and decided that we liked school. 왜 물어봤지? School. 읽읍시다.
나 해요. That's when Ryan came up with the most genius idea in the history of the world. This was his idea. We should
이거 뭐야?
이거.
아, 띵띵.
네. We should buy the school. Ryan told us that his father worked for this big company.
This big company인 것 같아. This big.
big 어디지?
company.
And that was
told us that
and that was his father's company, but some other company, just like you would go into a store and buy a candy bar. Ryan said it happens all the time.
똑띠네.
He said he didn't see any reason why we couldn't buy the school just like that. If we bought the school, what would we do with it?
I asked, sure, why not? Instead of teaching reading and writing and arithmetic, we could teach kids how to play video games, and we could ride skateboards and in the hallways. Asked Michael Robinson. Sure, we could. Ryan said, if we owned it.
지금과 반대되는
이거 다 if의 2번이잖아. 이 if는 나중에 배울 게 아니야. 자, 하루 종일 엄마 마냥 내가 으뜸이라면, 엄마 마냥 내가 용이라면, 엄마 내가 마냥 동생이 있다면 그런 말을 진짜 하루 종일 했었거든.
내가 몇 살 때?
1학년 때.
1학년이라면?
그래서 1학년 때 얘 가르쳐줬잖아. I started emptying out my pockets. I had a nickel, 3 pennies.
시클 아니었나?
응?
시클. 아, 그건 해리포터 돈이지.
나오세요, 해리포터 세상에서 팡. 자. And a lifesaver. The other boys emptied. 동서울시였다, 맞지?
네.
비었어. Their pockets too. We separated all the pennies, nickels, and dimes into little piles. Then we added up all the money. We had $1.32. Wow, Michael Robinson said. That's a lot of money. I don't think it's enough to buy a school, said Ryan. Well, how much do you need to buy a school? I asked. 읽어줄래요? 안 읽을래요? 읽어줄래요?
네.
네.
Beats me, said Ryan. We'd better ask Miss Daisy. We all rushed inside after recess and asked Miss Daisy how much it would cost to buy the school. G. I don't know, said Miss Daisy, who didn't seem to know much of anything. Why do you want to buy the school? We want to turn it into a video game arcade. I told her. What a great idea. She beamed. I love video games. There are so many schools and so few video game arcades. It makes perfect sense to turn some of those schools into video game arcades. I will arrange a meeting with Mr. Klutz tomorrow so we can ask him if we can buy the school.
So we can ask him if we can buy the school. But right now, we have to go to Mrs. Cooney's office. Mrs. Cooney's office is down the hall from our class. She says she is the school nurse, but personally, I think she's a spy. I'll tell you why. There's this big poster on her wall that says this. 또 땡땡이야?
언제 끝나지?
이 챕터가 좀 길더라. 아니야. I tried to read it and it didn't make any sense. It makes sense. It didn't make any sense at all. Even Andrea Young didn't know how to read the poster. 이 시력 검사하는 포스터다, 그치? And she knows everything. I think Mrs. Cooney has created a secret code. And she's using the poster to send mystery spy messages. We'll have to keep an eye on her. 주시해야 된대. Keep an eye on her.
그러면은 눈을 딱!
눈을 딱!
잔인하다.
When we walked into Mrs. Cooney's office, she had us all lined up in size order. Size order. She had us all lined up. I was one of the shortest kids, so I had to stand in the front of the line. Then Mrs. Cooney told us to take off our shoes. At first, I thought she didn't want us to track mud all over her office. But then she told us that she was going to weigh and measure us. Obviously, she is trying to gather information about us because that is what spies do. 읽어줄래?
My friend Billy says that the heavier you are, the smart you are.
Oh, the
Smarter.
Oh, the heavier, the smarter.
Because heavy people have bigger brains.
I'm not happy, but I have big brain.
Not big brain, you are big head.
Am I a big head, or do I have a big head?
You're a big heading man.
Man? Am I a man?
All men.
어디까지? But I think.
But I think Billy just says that because he is overweight. I weigh 52 pounds. Mrs. Cooney showed us this awesome ruler she has.
This ruler. 뭔지 알아요?
네.
해봅시다.
어디지?
완전 둥근.
It is made of metal and stretches out 6 feet long.
이렇게 막 늘어나는 거구나.
이거 푹 하면 슉. When she presses a button, the whole thing shoots. 맞네?
The whole thing shoots into her hand and
Disappears
like magic. That is cool. I bet she has lots of other spy tools too.
She wouldn't let us play with her magic ruler, but Mrs. Cooney ran around.
Mrs. Cooney ran around measuring
everything.
She showed us that the bench we were sitting on was 17 inches high. The door to her office was 30 inches across. Hey, my foot is a foot! Mrs. Cooney exclaimed. Aren't all feet feet? I asked. Some feet are less than a foot, and some feet are more than a foot. She replied, but my foot is exactly a foot. I had no idea what she was talking about.